Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, episode 334. Apologies for those who was checking us, who was looking for us to be on at 9 p.m. Eastern. Mad late. It's been a hectic day for me. Again, my apologies for that. I'm your host, Michael. Joining me this week, regular cast of characters, Gail from Communities Digital News, Daniel from the Inscriber and For Boxing News. What's going on, everyone?
Hey, it's just been a hectic slate of boxing breaking news for the last few days, and we're on top of it. We're exhausted. We're running around, but we got it all. We got it
Yeah.
all.
Yep.
For those who are new to Pound for Pound Boxing Report, Pound for Pound Box Report live YouTube show, podcast, and blog website. Discussing all things boxing. The motto is: when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get talked about. If you want to find out all the information, the place to go to is p4pboxingreport.com. Let me repeat that: p4pboxingreport.com. On the site, if you check the top portion of the screen, you'll find links to where to follow the show all over the podcast realm: Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, everything else, everywhere else in between. Also, you'll find links to where to follow us all over social media. Got a Facebook, IG, Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube account. Also, where you can donate, got a Cash Me PayPal donation link. Let donation be the best nation. If you have a little spare change on hand, $1, $2, $5, please shoot some coin Pound Box Report. Help overall production of the show, particularly behind the scenes. Also, on the site, you can, if you want to email us, you can do so at p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com if you have any questions or comments. Also, if you're interested in getting your, also, if you're interested in getting your body right during the summer, I know we're closing in on the end of the summer, but if you still want to get your body right, want to take part in my Let's Build Together fitness challenges. For those who are participating, my apologies again because of my schedule. Haven't been as active on that in the past couple of weeks. I posted an update on that Monday. I'll try to post one again tomorrow. But yeah, if you're interested in all things Beachbody on demand, the program's there. Be it the old school P90X Insanity Asylum series, or the newer stuff like 6 Weeks of the Work, 645, Bar Blend, which the ladies like, Morning Meltdown, and for those who like getting their stuff done early in the morning. Whatever fitness goals you have in mind, Beachbody on Demand has it. Also, if you're interested, take advantage of the 2-week trial. For 2 weeks, you get free access to all programs on Beachbody on Demand. So I would take advantage of that. If you're interested in any of that, hit me up on my Beachbody online coaching links, which you can find on the site as well. Let's get things started. Usually we do recaps, news, right? And then previews of upcoming fights. But as Gail alluded to, it's been crazy in the sport, particularly over the last 24 hours. So we're going to go into straight news. One news event in particular, and that is, look, we were all looking forward to the August 21st showdown between Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao. Spence defending his 2 belts against Pacquiao, right? But news broke yesterday afternoon that Spence, he released a statement that he has suffered from he's suffering from a detached retina. The fight is off now. Pacquiao's going to fight Yordenis Ugas. I'll go to you, Gail. Um, Real bummer, eh? We were all looking forward to it. I was going to do my Ladies Love boxing show, going to sit around that particular fight. Uh, but yeah, as the title says, what boxing often giveth, it can take it away. And unfortunately, this is another incident of the sport taking it away. Uh, we all, of course, wish a full and speedy recovery for Spence, but one of the biggest fights of the year, one of the most anticipated fights of the year, it's not happening.
No, it is not. And certainly it's no fault of Spence Jr.'s that he turned up with a torn retina when his pre-fight medical exam was conducted by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. It's required. And boom, there it was. So that's nothing to mess with. In fact, that kind of injury used to be a career ender. Thank goodness medicine has advanced to the point it's not necessarily. But he had to go for surgery right away, back home to Dallas. That'll get taken care of. Hopefully he'll recover. I think in the coming days and weeks we'll all wonder, was it done in sparring? Is it something that was lingering after his car accident? Was it something weakened by the car accident and only turned up now? You know, who's to say? But damn, what a bummer. Well, in the next breath, we find out that Yordenis Ugas, who was on the undercard, scheduled to fight a 10-rounder with Fabian Maidana, who's the younger brother of Marcos Maidana. He steps up to take Spence's place. At the same time that Spence's injury was announced in his withdrawal from the card, Maidana also suffered an injury and withdrew from the card. So it wasn't as if Maidana got left out in the cold. They just shuffled the chairs, played a little boxing musical chairs, and here we are. Now, here's what's just incredibly ironic. Only in boxing could this possibly happen. The reason Ugas has a belt is because the WBA, we're just going to get a lot of mention on this particular podcast tonight, and not much of it's going to be flattering. The WBA, in its infinite wisdom, stripped the title Pacquiao won when he beat Keith Thurman due to, quote, inactivity, and gave it as an interim to Ugas, who then defended it against Abel Ramos. So now here we are. Ugas is going to become Pacquiao's opponent, and Pacquiao is now technically the challenger for the belt he rightfully owned that got given to Ugas. And it also puts the WBA now in the position of procuring the officials, including the judges and the referee. Oh, and aren't we so excited by that news, given what happened last weekend to Mykal Fox, which we shall talk about. The whole thing is just so damned head-spinning. And to me, the next question, which I have not successfully had answered, are we absolutely sure everybody involved here is vaccinated? Because another upcoming card just fell out due to COVID, due to yet another main event unvaccinated athlete. Really? Are we still talking about this now in August 2021? Really? Okay, so there we are, folks. So that's the situation. But this is exactly why nobody should ever make non-refundable travel plans traveling to anything to do with boxing at any level. I personally am not entirely convinced we're going to see this fight in 10 days at all.
Maybe, Daniel, I should rename the title of the show Effery. But I'm afraid if I do that, I may get hit with a violation.
Yeah, YouTube
right.
might boot us.
Right.
Yep.
A lot there to unpack, Daniel, from Gail's comments. Are we for sure that this bout is going to come off? If so, is it right that it would still be a pay-per-view event for $70 no less? What do you make of this entire fiasco, for lack of a better word, since the announcement of Spence suffering a detached retina?
First, let's tackle the WBA situation because, like Gail mentioned, they're not going to get a lot of praise tonight in this program. But I'm going to give them praise in this instance because when that decision was made to strip Pacquiao of that belt, it was before the Spence fight was announced. So it's mainly due to a lot of inactivity. And normally you would figure the WBA would do WBA things and then just say, like, okay, we're going to give the belt back to Pacquiao because it's a big fight. We want to have this into it and derail that scenario. To their credit, at least in my eyes, to their credit, they didn't do that. They maintained that part of the decision and they had Ugas as the champion. But now, though they may get the chance to have that unification fight they want to have and actually make it for a full title. But that's one thing. Everything else, first you have to feel for Spence because coming back from what he has come back from, a situation where there was a good chance he would have died, and to come back and then right when you're hitting a payday where you have the chance, you are given the chance to retire a legend, and right before this happens, something like this happens. You feel bad for him. You have to make sure he's going to be good mentally because that's a hit. That's a hit. You're recovering from a very horrible accident, and then right at the cusp when you're looking like you're getting back, groove back, something like this happens. But as far as everything else, I understand why they kept it as a pay-per-view because unfortunately they have to pay Manny somehow. Manny's not just gonna go, okay, Spencer's out. I'm only gonna get $1 million. This is Manny Pacquiao. You're gonna have to pay Manny Pacquiao. And pay-per-view still matters in that sense where it'll be the only way to make money in this instance. But here's a scenario that some people threw, including our good friend of the program, Gus, threw. Why not postpone the fight rather than to just be a quick substitute? We have to realize that we talked about Manny Pacquiao has a lot of responsibilities outside of the ring, and if he's serious about, because judging is not 100% sure right now given certain things, but if he's actually serious about running for president of the Philippines next year, then he has to go back to the Philippines. He has to show himself may face, and then delaying the fight, which means still staying in the U.S., would be seen as a dereliction of duty in that sense. And quite frankly, because I know Gail is going to touch on this and leave it to her for that area. I'll touch on a little bit. There's a legitimate chance right now that this is not even going to take place, at least in its present form. So we have to take that into account because there's a lot of factors now that are playing into whether we even see Pacquiao Ugas at this stage.
For me, I'm betting that this is if it happens, if it happens, I'm with Gail. I'm not sure it happens the 24 on the 21st. It's just too much to try to piece together because when Spence made that announcement, it just a big giant puzzle, and just can't put and you just can't put it all together. I don't think in this amount of time. Um, Ugas would want the fight from a financial perspective. It would kind of make sense because he's been searching for a big fight. But from Pacquiao's perspective, why do it when you don't need to? Uh, um, don't think he's hurting for money. He got a lot on his plate from a political perspective, as you noted, Daniel. And if you're going to take this kind of chance, no disrespect, but is Ugas worth it? I don't think so. Uh, in the end, if they make the fight, if it's on the 21st, I would be surprised that it happens. It's my guess that it would be moved back to sometime in September or maybe October. There's a window where the sport is going to be um, inactive. Look, if I'm PBC, look, if Canelo's not going to fight on September 18th, why not move this bout to September 18th? What say y'all?
I'm not sure that accomplishes anything. We're talking about 4 weeks later, barely. That's not going to change the COVID situation. That's not going to bring back Spence. He won't have rehabbed. Yeah, all you're doing is displacing the 15,000 people or however many people bought tickets in Las Vegas. I think your chances of COVID being even worse in 4 weeks are probably better than it improving, especially after school starts in Clark County, Nevada. So I'm not sure a delay really solves any of the current problems of, especially a 4 week delay. It just kind of kicks the can down the road. The only way it would benefit anybody is to save the fight if it's got to go into a bubble versus being scratched entirely. That's really the only way I could see it even being possible.
Do you think the fight will ultimately happen on the 21st, Daniel?
Ah, uh, granted, I have taken the cynics in a lot of things. I don't think so. At least not in Vegas, because one of the things that's been happening, and like I said, this has been a perplexing year. This fight was going to happen around the same night that WWE is set to host SummerSlam at Allegiant Stadium. SummerSlam, it's their big summer pay-per-view, and they had big plans for it. And they supposedly they were trying to make it what they were hoping WrestleMania would be this year. However, unfortunately, and we have to give credit to the wrestling dirt sheets on this, sites like Fight 4 and the Wrestling Observer, WWE has been quietly making contingency plans to either postpone SummerSlam or, worst case, having to move SummerSlam back to their Thunderdome setting. And if people haven't watched like WWE, their Thunderdome setting is basically a gigantic set stage where fans that you had to apply for, you could watch it via Zoom and your screen would be all over the place. It's how they got through this whole time before they went back touring. They've been doing this for at least a month because they're seeing the figures. They're seeing how, unfortunately, how the Delta variant is going through Nevada right now. And if WWE, a company that bribed a governor with an $18 million bribe just to keep running, if they're already making those type of contingency plans, you better be sure that PBCs make contingency plans. And that's why I said, like, I don't think it'll happen in its current form. I can honestly right now see a scenario where PBC could announce in a week from now, the variant is getting too high. We don't want to risk our fans getting into it, particularly when it's a high marquee fight involving a legend of Manny Pacquiao. We'll still have to fight, but we're going to move it to a place with no fans. We're going to go back to the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. I could see that actually happening.
Go ahead.
That's a scenario I could see happening.
Yeah, so just wanted to give an update on that situation, given that that is the news story that's been the talk throughout boxing media over the last 24 hours. Again, whether the fight will still happen on that date, um, I think it's a giant question mark at this point. We'll keep you updated on the situation here on Pound for Pound Box Report. Let's get back to our regular format. And because we started so late, again, my apologies for that. I'm going to split these fights up between you, Gail, and Daniel. Um, let's start with the fight that took place, the card that took place on the zone, headlined by Kid Galahad, who fought Josh Warrington back in 2019, I believe it was, for the featherweight title. A lot of people felt that he won. He ended up on the wrong end of the decision. I personally thought that he edged it out. Well, with Warrington decided to vacate the title and then subsequently losing to Lara, upset, but really got beat down in that fight. That left the IBF featherweight title open. Uh, Galahad fought Jazza Dickens in the rematch, Gale, and he wasn't gonna let this opportunity slip by this time as Galahad. This was like slow death, just so he got the advantage. They fought before. Galahad was down early in that fight, came back and to win by stoppage. This time, it was like slow drip, slow drip, slow drip, and then till it became a steady downpour. And he beat Dickens up in this fight. The facial damage, pretty ugly for those who are a little bit sensitive. But yeah, the 11th round stoppage. Kudos to Kid Galahad. He's IBF champion now. He's right in there in the thickest of the featherweight landscape.
Well, it took him a while to get there, but God bless him. He finally got his title. I do question why the corner didn't get that fight stopped a little earlier. I mean, Dickens is brave, but he took a lot of punishment. His nose went down first, his eye went down next. I think his corner really could have protected him a little better. I get it. It seems pretty clear he had a broken nose, and it was also plain as could be that he was not going to win the fight. So, there we go. Galahad put in, 20 years of work, he said, 19, to finally feel that title strapped to his waist. So now he's going to get himself a title fight. It was announced immediately after. It looks like he's going to match up with Josh Warrington. That's a great domestic fight. There'll be a lot of interest from British fans. So all's well that ends well for him, and a good opponent for Warrington.
Well, first of all, let's contingent on. Well, let's just see how Warrington does in the rematch with Lara next month. The two fought earlier this year, and Warrington didn't just lose; he lost badly. He got beat down from moment one. Just couldn't handle the power that night. He got bounced all over the ring before getting stopped in 9. So I want to see how that fight goes. There are other opportunities there for him at 126 pounds. And I go to you, Daniel. I'm going to go back a couple of weeks, right? We was off last week, and a fight that took place in the interim was a fight between Kanzu and Leigh Wood. Zhu at the time, WBA regular champion. Wood was the underdog coming in, but he put on Daniel arguably the best performance of his career. It was competitive, but Leigh seemed to be a step ahead, particularly over the second half. Eventually wore down Kanzu, hurt him, stopped him in the 12th round. In connection to our just discussion about Galahad, that's the fight I'm looking forward to. Is more just as much as a fight between a rematch with Warrington. Your thoughts on Leigh Woods and the upset win over Kanzu?
I didn't watch all of the fight, but I did watch some of the highlights where we were waiting to watch it in, and this plays into the year of upsets that we've been having recently. And Wood definitely came in to impress, and not taking anything away from Zukan, in that he didn't show up like lackluster. He did show up, but unfortunately, it's a situation where somebody just wanted more, and Wood simply just wanted it more. Was able to wear down Zukan. I honestly thought after watching some of the highlights, I was a bit surprised they was able to get the knockout in the 12th round. I figured he did enough to win the fight on points, but it's a good way to win out. It's a good way to make a statement, and now you put yourself in line in many ways to deal in the Josh Taylor sweepstakes if he chooses to stay at 140 pounds.
Josh Warrington, you mean?
Josh, wait, no, isn't Zukan at 140?
No, but you said Josh Taylor. Don't you mean Josh Warrington?
Oh yeah. Oh no, the Galahad was the thinker for the Warrington, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about like Wood here. I think
Okay.
yeah, remember that fight was in the 140 pounds if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's in the Josh Taylor sweepstakes, and we don't know how long he's going to stay at 140 pounds because Top Rank is kind of waving the Terrence Crawford matchup pretty handily at him. So, but it does throw him in that picture now, and we know luckily that Taylor's going to at least defend the undisputed title at least once. So who knows? He may like it. He may decide to do it again, and Wood may put himself in that picture where, okay, let me be next.
Okay. Okay. Let me see. You got me confused. Wood, that fight was at 126. So that's why I was a little bit confused why you
Oh, okay.
mentioned
I'm
Josh
confusing
Taylor.
myself.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because I
Wood.
thought it was a 140. I keep
No,
thinking.
Wood fought Kanzu at 126. That was at 126.
Oh, okay. Oh no, then Warrington. Yeah, put yourself up in Warrington. That's a good fight, actually. That's a good fight if he beats Laura.
Yeah. So I can understand the calls for Galahad fighting Warrington, but again, I don't know how Warrington has if he's going to recover from that beatdown because that was savage what Lara did to him. Leigh Wood, career best performance. Let's see where he goes. He mentioned Galahad after his win over Kanzu. Again, I wouldn't be upset at that fight at all. Let's move on from that fight a couple of weeks ago to a bit of controversy, Gail, and that's involving the WBA. I want to get you into this as well, Daniel, as fight took place over this past weekend between Gabriel Maestre and Mykal Fox, right? And Maestre, I believe, got the decision win, but there's been a lot of controversy in terms of the scoring, particularly on the part of one particular judge. Uh, for those who do not know, and the controversy and why it has had so many boxing fans outraged, justifiably so. Give some insight on the fight, on the judges' scorecards, particularly the scorecards of Juan Martinez Rizzo.
Let me tell you that it is not too often the entire boxing universe agrees on something, right? We could all argue and pick over anything. But when everybody heard the scorecards in this welterweight fight after 12 rounds Saturday night, the outrage began and it has never stopped. It was such an obvious, travesty. Justice was not served. Even Gabriel Maestre You could just see as he's waiting for the scores, he knew that he had lost to Michael Fox, who was a late substitute in this fight against him for a minor vacant interim WBA strap. So, but Fox absolutely dominated the fight. He had dropped Maestre in an early round. It was just, your grandmother would say the outcome was as clear as the nose on your face. Well, it wasn't clear on the nose of the judges' faces. Now, two of them at least, John Mariano and David Singh, had it close. Singh had it 114 to 113. John Mariano had it 115 to 112. Those were still horrible scores. But Judge Gloria Martinez from Nicaragua had it 117 to 110. That is right up there with the worst of CJ Ross and Adelaide Bird, and the fact that they are all women horrifies me. And I, on behalf of all women who know even a tiny bit about boxing, we profoundly apologize for all three of them. So, after the fight, it was a complete meltdown. Boxing Twitter was just on fire. Even the broadcast team, which was Kenny Rice, Joe Goosen, Brian Kenny, excuse me, Joe Goosen and Lennox Lewis, barely knew what to say. They were stunned, and it's pretty rare that they call out, a decision like that when they're the paid broadcast team. But to their credit, they did. The promoter, Marshall Kaufman, requested an immediate rematch. Fox's promoter, WBA's president, Gilberto Mendoza, said, we will address this. And, clearly there were problems, and, we'll order an immediate rematch. Well, why don't you reverse the damn decision or pull this off their records? Well, at least they have ordered an immediate rematch. So check this out. This was news to me. So Michael Fox, the victor in the fight, but the loser on the cards. So it's Fox and his promoter requesting the review and requesting the rematch. So apparently the WBA, accepted it, reviewed the fight. There's a rule C26. They determined that it was close enough to order a second bout. However, that rule says that the protesting fighter has to pay a $10,000 fee to the WBA within 10 days of the fight for them to consider ordering a rematch. So they're taking 10 grand out of Michael Fox's pocket and his promoter's pocket to reconsider and order the rematch. Oh, thanks a lot for the favor, which everybody could see. How much investigation. That is an outrageous rape of Fox's wallet and his promoter's wallet. Shame on them. It's blood money. They're sucking up another fee. They'll order this rematch. This is why all of us should be greatly concerned about the fact that the WBA is now overseeing next weekend's fight between Pacquiao and Ugas after their effery taking Pacquiao's well-earned belt away from him and handing it to Ugas. What the hell? So frustrating. Boxing has really tested our loyalty lately. That's all I can say. The fact that we're still here, we're still talking about it, says to me that anybody that's still keeping their eyes on the sport is going above and beyond.
Yeah, I'll go to you, Daniel. The thing, it wasn't just the scorecards in terms of Gloria Martinez Rizzo. It's the backdrop. And again, what has folks so upset is that in the days after this fight, it's come to light that she has a history of racism. She is a racist. Let's just be honest about it. Just put it out there on the table. Um, some of the things that she said. If you want to be a staunch supporter of 45, fair enough. I'm giving you all kinds of side eye, but that's your prerogative. What you don't have the right to do is refer to former First Lady Michelle Obama as a monkey face, which she did. Uh, what you don't have a right to do, at least get away with it, not get away with it, but you should be held accountable for is to refer to LeBron James and says he's so stupid that all he can do is play basketball. Other than that, go back to the, I ain't even going to say it, stable, right? Um, and she has had a history of these tweets from her now deleted Twitter account, right? Um, that's why people are mad. That's why Fox said in the aftermath that he didn't have a chance on her scorecards because based on her tweets, her past tweets, it's obvious she got an issue with black folks. That ain't cool. And again, two middle fingers for the WB. The nerve of them to now know that this woman is a racist, right? Put it under review and ask this kid to pay $10,000 out of pocket in order for a rematch to happen of a fight that he won. No, reverse the decision. Get her out the paint. She has to go. Her license needs to be revoked. Period.
Okay, first, like I said, I'm gonna lay into this woman a little bit, but like I said, all of the cards are wrong. We have to mention all of the scorecards are wrong. Fox clearly won this fight, and for all of them to do this unanimous decision, that has to be looked into first. But with this particular person, you have a situation where not only, first of all, WBA credited this woman, they also awarded her, I think in 2019, they awarded her as one of their top judges. That's flabbergasting because now with all of these statements, and we have to give credit. I forgot who it was, but it was somebody at ESPN that compiled all those tweets and even gave links in the Wayback Machine for you to see them after she deleted her account. In case what people don't know, it's a Wayback Machine. It's a site that actually pretty much just takes screenshots of all internet sites at a given point in time. And at that point, you have to do a lot more digging because now, honestly, to me, you're going to have to look at every card that this woman has judged that has involved a black fighter. Has she been fair in that instance? Has this discrepancy happened again and only now and have shown up? This has to be really, really dug into, but for the WBA, who, remember, in the past few years, they try to make as much grandiose promises as they could, whether it's trying to consolidate the belts. We all know that's been a lie. Doing a program similar to the WBC when it comes to VADA testing. Haven't seen much of that. And for them to now charge the guy who was wronged in the fight by one of your judges, mind you, and charge him money just to exercise his right to the rematch? A rematch that you as the organization has ordered? I'll say it in Italian in many ways when it comes to Gilberto Mendoza. Fanculo Mendoza. Fanculo.
Indeed. I go to see what's up to EJ Boxing Live. He's joined us on. He's on live YouTube chat. He says that woman is bad, worse than was bad as CJ Ross. She's worse, fam. She's worse. At least to my knowledge, CJ Ross doesn't have this kind of background. And it was Corey Erdman. I want to give proper acknowledgement of ESPN, who did a search and revealed some of her past tweets. And yeah, my stance remains. I don't get this in terms, the decision was, her scorecard was bogus. All of them were bad. It was just hers was the worst. And then when you put it up against the backdrop of the things that she has said, at least in the social media, put it this way: if she has the nerve to say that in social media, that's a window into. Imagine what she says about someone who looks like me in private, in front of her friends, right, where she's really comfortable. So there's no doubt that she wasn't going to give the fight to Fox. There's no doubt in my mind she's had a prejudiced attitude against black fighters in the past. She can't be trusted. She should not be trusted, and she should never be allowed to judge a fight again. You know, damn, like a 60, 90-day suspension. Give her the boot permanently. You can't have this. Cannot be tolerated in this sport. No way, no how. And let's keep this on the WBA. I'm going back to you, Gail. They announced, and we're going directly to the news here. They announced in effect that we know that they have all kinds of belts, regular belts, super belts, interim belts. They announced, I read that they're going to kind of change that policy. Do you have any further details about that? I wasn't able to read all of it because of my hectic schedule. But what are they talking about?
Well, essentially, the WBA says it is looking into thinning down the number of belts that it awards. Well, I'll believe it when I see it. I'm not holding my breath, not impressed, not a lot of substance there. Yeah, we get it. The sanctioning bodies hand these things out like Halloween candy because that then earns them sanctioning fees that the fighters and their promoters pay. On the other hand, the fighters themselves do encourage it, do participate, because they all like to say that they have a title. They are a champion when they win one of these, bogus minor straps, right? If all of the fighters and all the promoters would refuse to play along and say, no, thanks. Nope, don't care. I only want, what now is in a lot of divisions, the super title, the one legit top of the food chain title. If they'd refuse all the others, maybe the sanctioning bodies would knock it off. We as boxing journalists and media should start refusing to acknowledge those minor straps. I'm not putting the sanctioning bodies acronym or the belt name in front of the fighter's name when I'm reporting. I will acknowledge that perhaps a fight is taking place for a minor strap. That's it. We all need to start refusing to play too. But some promoters, on the one hand, they don't love it. Some of the fighters, on the other hand, they don't love it either. It costs them money, but they know that several of the television networks and streaming services want to be able to say, oh, Saturday night, we have 3 title fights on our card. 2 of them are for these bogus interim, minor, ruby, pearl belts, whatever. So everybody's complicit. That's part of the problem. Who's going to pull the plug first? Who's going to take a stand? And who's going to say, no, No mas. We're done with this. It's not going to be the sanctioning bodies. So WBA, you can yap and promise all you want. Promises are cheap. Words are cheap. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, you're right. It's yeah, the WBA, they want to do all this nonsense with their mini titles and whatnot, but it's up to media, it's up to fans who really know this, who really follow the sport with great intent to have some accountability. Just because they do it doesn't mean that we have to abide by, follow what they do, right? Yeah, you can have a WBA interim, this and all that, but fans know, media knows who the champions are, and we ought to just acknowledge the champions, and all the other shenanigans just leave it alone, right? Uh, don't follow this script. You're the one with the pen, right? If you know the sport, do right and cover it the right way. Just in the same way, the confusion about the franchise title, and yes, when it comes to WBC, responsible media members don't call someone the franchise title because it doesn't really hold weight, right? Do the same thing with the WBA. Shame them if you want to mention them. Hell, shame them, yeah, but don't follow their script and don't follow what they do, because we all know it's a scheme to collect sanctioning fees. Um, will they kind of trim down things? We'll see. We'll see. They've been making so much money off of this for so long. I doubt that they let go of that money grab. I'll go to you, Daniel. Next story here on the docket. Um, COVID strikes his case ugly head again. Few shows back, we talked about the issue of Tyson Fury testing positive. Well, another boxer has tested positive this time. Former two-time WBC champion at 168 pounds, David Benavidez, tested positive for COVID-19, postponing his August 28th fight with Jose Uzcategui. This really hurts him in a sense, Daniel, because he's trying to position for a fight against Canelo. He wants a fight against Jamal Charlo. Um, it can be argued he's the most dangerous guy at 168 pounds. He's Canelo's biggest threat. He needs to stay active, stay in the ring, and keep his name in these boxing streets as often as he can. And this doesn't help with this positive test.
First, Gail actually mentioned it when before we were talking that the word that came out that he wasn't even vaccinated. So he didn't even have that one little leg that Fury had to stand on when it comes into that. That is complete dereliction. Especially when you know you're in an organization, PBC, that save for a few fights doesn't really announce them with a long time ago. Think about it. This fight was literally just announced, and we're having a little bit more than a month to build. And now you have this situation where you have now had to trace where he got it from. Is it his gym? Was it somewhere that's gone out? Is he going to be able to? Will he be able afterwards to try to get vaccinated? Because we don't know how that's going to happen. We're at a point right now with this variant that we may need a booster shot for people that have already been fully vaccinated. So it plays a complete fact. It plays with the schedule. You don't know how everything's going to shape up. And apparently, from what I'm seeing, that Showtime's just going to move the entire card. They're not going to try to put it another fight as the main event, which in this case would be wise. And like I said, it's not going to surprise me. This is going to happen now, Mohegan Sun in Connecticut with no fans. So, but Benavidez, like I said, this is just unfortunately another instance where the decisions that he's made outside of the ring are now costing him inside of the ring.
And that's the unfortunate part of all of this. Let's go from the professional to the amateurs, Gail, and talk Olympic boxing, right? Um, didn't get much coverage here in the States in terms of mainstream outlets. I mean, NBC, what are you doing? What are you doing? Us boxing fans would have liked to seen more than a snippet of a fight in terms of coverage on the during the Olympics, right? But despite of that, and you wrote about this for Communities Digital News, when it comes to the United States boxing team, very successful. What did any U.S. boxer win gold medal? No, but still did get silvers. Um, Keyshawn Davis became a hot name over in Tokyo. Richard Torres did as well. Um, Arguably the most successful outcome for the United States boxing team in 20 years. This is to you, Gail.
It's going to depend on how you define successful, but certainly by the number of medals, yes, the most medals by a U.S. Olympic boxing team since 2000. The men are still hanging on to a bit of a gold medal drought. They go back to Andre Ward. The ladies go, of course, to fare a little better with Clarissa Shields bagging 2 gold medals in the last 2 games. So for the women's side, O'Shea Jones did win a bronze medal at welterweight. Well done to her. For the men, 2 silvers or 2 silvers and a bronze. So very well done. And none of the fighters got completely blown out. None of them did less than a very respectable effort in showing, even though some of them, did lose early on. I was very excited to see Rashida Ellis, who is Rashidi Ellis's sister, advance. And then, oh, damn it, she ran in the quarterfinals straight into her opponent, Caroline Dubois. Yes, another boxing sister to Daniel Dubois. So, that was sort of a shame luck of the draw. She certainly would have advanced to the middle rounds had she not run into Dubois first. To me, the surprise of the tournament for us was Richard Torres, and not all that well-known amateur, despite the fact he fought as an amateur much longer than anyone else on the team, except for maybe Jenny Fuchs. 22 from the Central Valley of California, interesting Renaissance man. He was the valedictorian of his high school. He plays chess. He's an amateur magician. He loves classical music. He walks into Beethoven as his ring walk. I mean, really? And he had an upset victory in the semis to reach the finals up against, one of these massive, super heavyweight brutes. And he won the first round on the cards by smart fighting on the inside, very smart. Unfortunately, what happens is in amateur boxing, the referees are very vigilant about any possibility of a headbutt. They don't like guys barreling in head first when they're the shorter fighter, pushing against the chest of the taller guy. And so they really get in the way and stop them, and they're warning them, don't come in with your head down. Well, if you're a guy who's 6'2", fighting a guy 6'7", who outweighs you by 40 pounds, that's what you're going to do, is get right in there on the inside. And that's where Torres was successful. But unfortunately, in the last 2 rounds, he ended the fight on his feet and really put in a good effort, but it was just not his day. Keyshawn Davis came in and won the first round handily. It looked like he was going to have a cakewalk, but he was up against a very skilled 2-time Olympic gold medalist, as it turns out, Andy Cruz, who simply outworked him. I don't know what the issue was with Davis after the first round. He just wasn't busy enough. That's the kiss of death in amateur boxing. And Duke Reagan did well lost his semi. Unfortunately, they don't. The Olympics doesn't hold bronze medal fights, so both fighters who lose in the semis both win a bronze. That's what happened to Reagan. Still a really, really nice showing. And if you could dig around and find the live streams, either very late at night on the West Coast or in the wee hours of the morning live on the East Coast, or occasionally catch a glimpse of it on the USA Network's 3 p.m. Eastern sort of catch-all highlight show, you might catch a little boxing. I stayed up late way too many nights watching a lot of the competition. We're going to see a lot of stars emerge. And to me, even though he didn't end up winning his fight, you're going to see a light heavyweight from Russia named Imam Katayev, who was absolutely sensational. If you saw anything from boxing in the Olympics, you probably saw a highlight reel type knockout where Katayev hit with a one punch KO, lights out. Very hard to do in the amateurs. His Spanish opponent, and it almost looked like he corkscrewed him into the ground. Really an impressive knockout.
Yeah, he was down in that bout, and just all of a sudden,
God,
one
that was
shot,
right at
boom.
the end of the fight as well. After the 3 rounds, Katayev looks like a cross between Beterbiev and Kovalev at his best. He really does. He's going to be fun to watch. Also, although she didn't win and ended up with the silver, the heir apparent to Katie Taylor is another Katie from Ireland named Harrington, and we'll be seeing more of her as well. So really, a great tournament. We also had the very first, believe it or not, gold medalists, both men and women, from the Philippines. You believe they haven't ever won a gold medal in boxing until now? So Manny Pacquiao was cheering on his countrymen and women, and they performed very well. The Cubans got the biggest take of medals, Great Britain right behind them. No surprise when you look around at what's going on in boxing worldwide that those 2 amateur teams would do the best.
Indeed. And Keyshawn Davis and Andy Cruz. One I actually saw that fight live, wrote about it for Three Kings Boxing. One of the better fights of the entire tournament. Cruz is arguably the most skilled fighter of the Olympics, and Davis. I would suspect some of the promoters will bring out a good bit of cash. I mean, he's fought 3 fights as a pro, but I would not be surprised at one of the big wigs, PBC, Top Rank, whoever, will throw some money his way once he returns back to the pro ranks. Torres, the guy you mentioned, he fought was Jalalov, I believe his name is, and even though he lost, he can hold his head up high because the 2 had previously fought in 2019, and Torres got splattered first round KO in about that. You can check on the AIBA YouTube page. It's got over 1 million views. A lot of people felt that Torres would get knocked out again, but as you mentioned, Gail, he went the 3 rounds, won the first round. It's just Jalalov. It's just too big and too strong, and it didn't help Torres' cause that the Kazakhstan fighter has had 8 fights as a pro, and that served him well in this fight after getting, I think, buckled in the first round by Torres. So for the U.S. contingent overall, excellent showing by both the men and the women, and we'll see where the fighters, particularly the ones who won medals, how will they turn out as pros. One last news bit. I'm going back to you, Daniel, on this one. Some news regarding Lomachenko. It looks like his next fight is lined up. Anticipating for Lomachenko to return in December of this year against possible former world champion.
Yep, all signs are looking to pointing right now to him facing Richard Comey. Now, this is a little bit of a consolation prize when it comes to Loma, because originally that was supposed to be the date where he was going to have that rematch with Teofimo Lopez, but with the way the Lopez Cambosa situation has devolved, which the IBF actually had to have a ruling earlier in the week, pretty much mandating that that fight had to happen by October 17th, and it had to happen in the area where they would not have to go through quarantine because Cambosa's team was trying to move the fight to Australia. Now, with that happening of it, that threw the Loma plans out the window. But this is a good consolation prize when it comes to getting a fight. We have to think about it. Originally, this was a fight that we all thought he was going to get until Lopez beat Comey. And this is going to be actually interesting. It'll be a good proxy fight because we saw how Lopez handled Comey when he won the title. Loma, if everything looks good, he should do what we all thought he was going to do when we thought they were going to get the fight the first time around. Dominate, just outbox Comey, and it'll be the showing saying like of always what happens in proxy fights. I beat the guy you beat better than you did. And in Loma's case, it'll be an additive. Now you know that the shoulder was what was bothering me. If I was 100%, you would not beat me. But that looks to be what's happening. But like it's been the theme, unfortunately, throughout the entire episode. And as Gail famously says, the pandemic is always going to have a vote.
Unfortunately, that's the COVID-19 is ever prevailing in the sports and in our society as well. Let's move on to some. Let's move on and start previewing some fights here. I'm going back to you, Daniel, and the big fight of the week is kind of a fight that was on, then it was off, and now it's back on, taking place at 118 pounds as we have John Riel Casimero was originally going to fight Guillermo Rigondeaux. All of a sudden, Rigondeaux got bumped off, and Donaire was going to step in. That fight was canceled due to some squabbles outside the ring. Rigo is back on. They're going to fight this weekend on Showtime. Aggressive puncher versus skilled boxer, Daniel. Casimero, 3-division champion, right? He likes to come in and lead with power, particularly when it comes to the left hook. Good right hand as well. Rigo, say what you want at age 40. He still can box. People may not like his style, but it's been effective throughout most of his career. If Casimero can't draw Rigo into a brawl, Rigo outboxes him. But if Rigo shows real signs of age here, he could be in trouble. Who do you have going into this fight, Daniel?
Karmic justice to me is going to play a factor into this because, like you mentioned, Mike, this was the original fight to begin with before the Donaire situation happened. And once that imploded, it was easy to go back into it. Now, we have to remember this is age 40 with the Cuban birth certificate. We don't really know what the actual age is. But with Rigo, this is a similar situation to Donaire where he went up in weight. I think the most he fought was 130 pounds. Didn't really look good. So he made the move back to bantamweight. Now, we know the move back to bantamweight has played dividends for Donaire. We have to see if it does at this stage because at bantamweight, along with that defense, Rigo did pack a pretty decent punch. It wasn't a situation, where he'll knock you out every time, but he will give you a hematoma. And that's going to be the situation that Casimero is going to be facing because Casimero, the best chance he has is to make it a brawl, is to make it a firefight. and to be able to land a left hook, catch Rigo, maybe knock him out. But if Rigo is Rigo and his footwork is still there, along with going back to the weight that he's more comfortable in and that the power is still there, it'll be a difficult night. I fully expect Rigo to win this. And if he does, then one of Donaire's wishes that he had after winning the WBC title will come true, because we have to remember, one of the things he said is he wants to rematch the fights that he lost at bantamweight. And Rigo's one of them.
Fight's going to take place in LA. Gail, on the undercard, pretty interesting fight, in my opinion. Speaking of the WBA and their shenanigans, and they're just throwing titles up just to collect sanctioning fees. This is going to be for the WBA interim bantamweight title, as former IBF champion Emmanuel Rodriguez stepping into the ring against one of the Russell brothers, I believe, Antonio Russell. And I know Rodriguez is a former champion, but of the Russell brothers not named Gary Russell, I think Antonio could be the best of the lot. Um, am I wrong to think that he would not only show well but also that he could very well win this fight?
He could. By the way, his first name is Gary.
Yes, I mean the other Russell brother, Gary Antonio. Yeah,
right. They all go by Gary. They all have a Gary name. It's kind of like the Foreman family sons. But yeah, he's an interesting guy. He's very confident in himself. He is a naturally right-handed fighter who fights as a southpaw, which is interesting. It was a quirk of him being in the gym. He was not hell-bent on following the family trade into boxing. Apparently, he was hanging around the gym when the older brothers were training, and his dad said, if you're going to be hanging around here, you need to get to work. You need to train too. And he turned out to be just as talented as his other brothers. Rodriguez will be a good test for him. Yeah, Rodriguez has got losses on his record, but when one of those losses is to Naoya Inoue, you have to give someone a little bit of a pass there. I mean, everybody goes down to the monster. So this might be a StubHub classic. We'll see whether they choose to engage. But it's a great fight for an undercard regionally. It's they've got the right fighters in front of the right audience, and there are not a lot of obvious blowout fights on this card. There are a lot of 50-50 fights. So that often makes good news for fans, and credit to the matchmakers.
sorry, I was on mute. I believe Rashid Warren is also fighting on this card as well. Let's take it from California to Texas, Daniel. The Zone card, Golden Boy promoted card, um, headlined by Vergil Ortiz, Jr., best fighter on the Golden Boy stable. Right, he's fighting Kavaliauskas. Ortiz, impressive in his last outing, stoppage win over Maurice Hooker. He's right up there on the verge of a title shot at the rankings, according to the rankings. Top 2 by the WBO, right? He's ranked high in the other sanctioning organizations. Kavaliauskas gave Crawford a decent scrap. I felt he knocked him down, though it wasn't credited as a knockdown. How much concern can he put into the up and coming Ortiz?
Well, Mean Machine, he was laying people out early on in the career. So this is a really, really good test for Vergil, who has been fighting off the social media goons in a way, like who accused him of ducking Terence Crawford to fight Mean Machine. We don't know if those reports are true in that sense, but we do know that after that fight with Hooker, him and Bud did talk a little bit. And this is the fight that where Ortiz has to really, really show improve, because if he gets a not only a good performance, if he is able to knock out Mean Machine, then you have a scenario where you can't Top Rank just can't throw Josh Taylor at Terrence Crawford. Now you have to face somebody in Vergil, and you mentioned it. He's ranked pretty high in the other sanctioning bodies, which means he has to be in the eyes of one Mr. Errol Spence. Maybe in the future, depending on what's going to happen, a Mr. Manny Pacquiao. So there's very much intrigue. There's a lot on the table for Ortiz. And like you mentioned in the beginning, like out of the prospects, he is the much better prospect out of him and Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia gets a lot of social media love, but as far as actual potential, Vergil's the one that has the most potential. And this is the fight that could put him on a map where the champions may not be able to step aside from him much longer.
Yeah, absolutely. A very interesting fight that's not getting much attention outside of hardcore heads. So look for that in Frisco, Texas on the zone. And on the undercard of that, the Alvarado brothers will be fighting Renee defending his WBA regular 130-pound title against Gabriel Gutierrez. Felix defending the IBF junior flyweight title against Eric Lopez. And also Pablo Cesar Cano, he's fighting on that card as well. One final bout before we sign off, Gail, taking place also on the zone earlier in the day on the 14th in England at the little compound, well, basically in Eddie Hearn's backyard. Let's just put it that way. Joshua Buatsi fighting a guy by the name of Bolotniks, right? 12-round bout at light heavyweight. The thing about this is the fight. The reason why you should keep an eye on this fight is because both Buatsi and Bolotniks are very, very high by the WBA. I think 2 and 3 respectively. Buatsi's second, Bolotniks third. So in many ways, this could be considered an eliminator for that WBA title, which is held by, or the super title, which is held by, oh man, brain freeze. WBA light heavyweight champion Dimitri Bivol. I've seen a little bit of Bolotniks on tape. I think that Buatsi is has a higher degree of skill. I think he's faster with the hands and feet. Bolotniks has tight defense, but I just don't know if offensively he has enough for the likes of the talented Buatsi. Your view of this fight, Gil?
This is meant to position Buatsi to get into the light heavyweight sweepstakes, advance to the next level with all the names circulating. Now, maybe he isn't going to advance all the way up in the ring that includes Bivol, Beterbiev, you have to say Canelo now. But certainly it would make him a potential player with the likes of the Joe Smith Jr.'s, the Zurdo Ramirez's potentially, that level, to see if he can get some fights there. Light heavyweight's a fun division. There's a lot of guys out there with a lot of skill. It's all about matchmaking and the styles with these guys, and then the mystery of, what happens with Canelo, who can dictate terms when he wants to play. But I don't think Buatsi will have any trouble with Bolotniks. Hopefully it'll challenge him a little to bring out the best of him and look good. But come on, who are we kidding? This is meant to advance him on to the next round.
Sorry, I was on mute. Savannah Marshall, she was scheduled to fight on this card as well, defending her WBO middleweight title. Do you have any update? Is she still fighting on that card? And if so, against who?
No idea. Don't ask me a question I don't have the answer to.
Okay, I'll leave it at that, and then we'll begin to shut the show down on that note. I want to thank everybody who joined us in the live YouTube chat. Sean Fitzgerald, the homie EJ Boxing Live. Going to, if you like what you heard this evening, please make sure to hit that like button, that subscribe button if you're checking us out on the podcast realm. Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Anchor, Spotify, and everywhere else between. Hit that like button. We'd love to hear your comments, particularly as it pertains to Apple Podcasts. Please make sure to leave a comment there. That will up our numbers in the algorithms there on Apple Podcasts. 5-star review will get read on the show. Going to go around the panel here. And oh, you mentioned in the chat, Daniel. Yeah, the Maloney fight, the Andrew Maloney fight. My apologies on that. He is fighting this weekend, I believe. The rematch between Franco and Andrew Maloney, the trilogy, I should say. Quick word on that.
Yeah, technically a trilogy because in the rematch, Franco suffered an injury right on the fight. It was called no contest. Maloney's team accused him of trying to get out of the fight. This is going to be an interesting fight because the only way to judge it, unfortunately, is to judge it off the first fight, where it was very close. Franco pulled it out, and I think in this case he'll do it again. He'll pull it out, but Maloney will definitely show up. Like those kids, him and his brother, have made it a point to put themselves up on the stage.
Yeah, and that fight is going to be held on ESPN in Tulsa on the undercard. Andrew Maloney's brother, Jason, who, for those who may remember, recently fought Naoya Inoue, fought him last year, October. He's going to fight Joshua Guerrero on that card, so look out for that. Again, want to thank everybody who joined us in the live chat. Please check out, if you like the show, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. For those who are checking us out on the podcast realm, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, everywhere else between, please make sure to follow us there as well. Apple Podcasts, please write a review, providing your comments and whatnot. They'll help our numbers, the algorithms and whatnot. 5-star review will get read on the show. Thank everybody who joined us in the live chat. Sean Fitzgerald, EJ Boxing Live. Go to our panel here. Begin the show with ladies first. Going to end the show with ladies first. Gail from Communities Digital News, for those who want to Communities Digital News in the Falcon Valley Group. For those who want to talk boxing with her, for those who want to talk media, for those who want to check her out on a semi-regular basis on TMZ Live. Let the folks know where they can find you.
A PS to the Savannah Marshall question. She is off the card, no opponent. So
okay.
Check that out. You can find me on Communities Digital News, which is COMM, COMM, Digi, DIGI News, comdiginews.com. That's where it's more straight reporting. I have also joined the crew at nyfights.com, nyfights.com, for more opinion column rants, which one is up right now about the whole Pacquiao Ugas situation. Get vaccinated, people.
I'll go to you, Daniel, for those who want to, Daniel from the Inscriber, as well as for Boxing News. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat, let the folks know where they can find you. Or for those who want to talk professional wrestling as well, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yes, hello. You can find me on Twitter at Rockus99, RWKUZ99. And I'm going to upload it tonight, later on, as soon as we're done this as well. Like I said, the podcast, the folks are for Boxing News. Like Joe and Francis, we're definitely going to be, we did talk about a lot of what we talked about tonight. And definitely catch us on next week because, like I said, the way things are going, it's going to be a lot of cancellations that may be happening.
Yeah, and speaking of cancellations, yeah, I was planning to do the Ladies Love Boxing Show, the next rendition of that, um, within the next couple of weeks, and center it around the Spence Pacquiao fight. I'm gonna have to delay that now, given that the fight is now off. I'll provide some details in the coming weeks as far as that. So, Nika, Sadet, Manny, if you're listening, my apologies. I'll send you the information. I'll reach out to you after the live recording here in terms of a update on that situation. For those who want to talk music, boxing, fitness with me, you know what it is. Brother JR76 on Twitter. As I said at the beginning of the show, if you want to find out all things regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, um, P4PBoxerReport.com is the place to go to. If you want to email us, you can do so with questions or comments and whatnot. You can do so at P4PBoxing at P4PBoxerReport.com. On the website itself, just navigate throughout the page, particularly the first part of the page. You'll find to where you can check out the show on the podcast realm, where you can donate, my coaching page, and whatnot, where to follow us all over social media and all that jazz. On the next episode, we will do a recap of all the fights that's happening on the 14th. Casimero, Rigo on the undercard of that. Gary Antonio Russell, Emmanuel Rodriguez, that card in LA on Showtime. We will talk about that. We will recap that. We will also recap the Joshua Franco, Andrew Maloney trilogy. Jason Maloney fighting on the undercard of that. That's going to be in Tulsa on ESPN. Also going to do a recap of the DAZN card in Frisco, Texas. Vergil Ortiz versus Kavaliauskas, Mean Machine, aka, and also the Alvarado brothers who will defend their respective titles, and talk about Buatsi and Bolotniks. The second DAZN card is happening in Essex, England, and for the time being, Ugas and Pacquiao is happening. We'll do a preview of that bout. It's up in the air whether it will still happen by the time we return next week. But for now, we will do a preview of that fight. So I want to thank everybody who joined us in the live chat. For Gail from Communities Digital News and the Falcon Valley Group, Daniel from the Inscriber and Ford Boxing News. This has been episode 334 of the Pound for Pound Box Report. I'm your host, Mykal. We will see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night. And hip hop note, Daniel. Shout out to the one De La Soul who finally got their masters after their long battle with Tommy Boy and Jada Kiss. Shout out to Jada Kiss. The Locks versus Dipset. Jada Kiss basically bodied the whole Dipset all by himself.
Yeah, they literally by himself. But yeah, definitely the De La Soul thing, that's been a long time coming. Like, they have been fighting for decades to get those masters, and I'm glad that they finally did.
I'm still outside. Episode 334 Power for Power Box Report. We'll see you guys next time.